No, whenever.
Alrighty. Good afternoon. I am Mia Hayes Hawkins, and I'm here with co-interviewer Mr. David Quick. And we're here interviewing Mr. Henry Womack on Wednesday, July 17, 2013. This interview is a part of the DC Gardeners Oral History Project, sponsored by the Neighborhood Farm Initiative and the DC Humanities Council. Thank you for talking with us today. Can you start, I guess, David, by saying your name?
I'm David Quick. I live in 921 Perry Place, Northeast, Washington, D.C.
Okay. Good deal. And can you start today also with sharing your name and your address, Mr. Warren?
Surely. I'm Henry Womack. My address is 5001 Hunt Street, Northeast DC. And I'm a gardener.
Good deal. Well, we're actually just going to start off with some preliminary questions right now. But do you mind talking about right now your early life and your childhood? Was gardening involved, or how was it coming up? Are you originally from DC?
I'm not originally from DC. I'm originally from Halifax, Virginia.
Okay.
It's an agriculture community. It was an agriculture community. They used to produce a lot of tobacco.
Okay.
Products. So I got my earliest start there, in the fields.
Nice. So I'm guessing Halifax, Virginia, it is not is it a big city? Or was it, back when you were growing up, was it bustling with people that were farmers? Was there farmer markets around?
It wasn't a bustling community. It's 120 miles from Richmond, the capital of Virginia. It's a little rural community. And of course they had farmers markets.
Okay. So if you want to elaborate a little bit, how was it back then?
Well, it was during my childhood period. I left there when I was around, I'm assuming around 7 years old.
Okay.
So there's not really much to elaborate on in terms of, I remember my parents having gardens. Also my grandparents having gardens. And then there were the local community markets at the churches. So, and that's basically about all I can remember of that period in my life. But when I migrated to Baltimore, which my early recollections of Victory Gardens then. I don't think they actually called them Victory Gardens, but they were similar to the Victory Gardens, backyard gardens.
Nice. Okay.
Had your family been in Halifax for a long time, or?
Well, we originate from there. When you say a long time, I'm assuming. In fact, a lot of my family is still there. I would have to answer yes. We've been there for a while.
Nice. Okay. So when did you get to DC? I guess you mentioned Baltimore.
I left Baltimore. I apologize for the wandering, but I'm probably thinking around about 14.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, around 14 years old.
Okay, so when you got here, were you heavily involved with gardening even at that young age because you came from Halifax doing that? Or?
Well, this city was a little different than, say, Baltimore and Halifax. You had a lot of government workers here, and they weren't really into gardening at that point, because again, it was a government city. They had postal workers, municipal workers, and and kind of like that, but there weren't really a lot of gardeners here. You know, it wasn't a gardening type situation.
Okay. So
From my standpoint.
okay. So maybe were you in a community or neighborhood where I'm guessing, or I'm assuming, or I would like for you to tell me, were you in a community where there was any type of community garden? Where did you actually get your food?
Well, the closest to a community garden would have been at Springarn,
Oh, wow.
because they had I'm not sure if the word is arboretum. No, it couldn't be arboretum. They had a greenhouse
Okay.
on top of the school, or on one part of the school. And part of my education was, you know, we would go in there and we would plant things, you know. And that was my earliest exposure to gardening in D.C. Now, the little old folk always had tomato plants in their backyard, you know, but it wasn't a huge community garden movement in the city then, like it is now.
Wow. Nice.
What part of DC were you living in?
Northeast DC. In fact, I'm still here.
Wow. Nice.
Did your parents, it's Baltimore to DC, did they always keep a garden of their own? Or the tomato plant?
Well, yeah. Well, they always kept two things: tomato plants, squash, and basically that was it. Yeah. Nothing more than that.
Okay. So I guess other than that, it was just, you know, regular grocery stores.
Sure.
And things like that as far as food. How extensive was your, I guess, your gardening or your agricultural beginnings at Springarn? I mean, did you do that every year? Was that just something you did in your own spare time, or?
It was just sort of like an extracurriculum activity.
Oh, right.
It didn't last very long, because when you're from the South, let me just say, when I was from the South, but when you moved to a city, you really didn't want to do any more gardening. You didn't, you know, because it was actually hard work, the stigma that was attached to that type of work. And your parents then, they wanted you to go to school. They wanted you to succeed in something other than gardening, because that's from where they came, you know, and so they didn't really want to be gardening again.
Oh, wow.
You know, even though there were community in Baltimore, the most famous place to go to get produce was Lexington Market.
Okay.
And we were always there.
Wow.
You know, because I'm not sure what communities surrounded Baltimore at that time, but you know, farmers brought their produce to Lexington Market, and the whole community would meet there.
Wow.
As they do now.
Good deal. Okay. What do you remember growing, I guess, in your early, whether it been Springarn, in Virginia, or even, you know.
Tobacco. You have to actually live through that. It was a huge plant. It was waxy. They had 8-inch worms on them, you know, what we used to call tobacco worms. And my parents, well, mostly my cousins and nephews and uncles that worked in the fields, they would have to almost boil their clothes to clean them from this waxy substance that was on the tobacco plant. And of course, when we raised livestock, and also that we they had gardens. But because I was of that young age, I just had to go pull the weeds,
Okay.
weed the garden, and pick the fruit and stuff. And we had orchards, apple trees, pears, and plums.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, we had a lot of trees.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay, so the tobacco farms were big for you. Was there anything that was your favorite thing to grow? I mean, tobacco seems like it was not so.
It was hard work.
Yeah.
My favorite plant to really eat and it really grew wild was blackberries.
Wow.
But we had a blackberry patch. And it's not like the new blackberries. These were blackberries with thorns. The current ones are the hybrids now, are thornless. So, but these were thorns, but they were the most favorite ones because they were always sweet. And then you could just get some sugar, bam, and you have a tree.
Oh, nice.
So blackberries were my favorite.
That sounds good.
So that's, an orchard of fruit trees and blackberry patches is pretty, it's a pretty wonderful thing. When you moved up to Baltimore and then DC, was that hard to leave, access to that kind of fruit behind?
You don't actually have a choice. Even though, things were different, we then, like I said prior, is that we could go to Lexington Market, and we could probably get the almost identical same products there. The city was so new, you almost forgot, from which you came because it was so exciting. Excuse me. The schools, it was a new experience. Answer the question, well, was it hard? No, it was not hard because you always had your mama's cooking, which was almost identical to from which you had came because, she cooked the same, she got the same ingredients from Lexington Market, and she cooked the same, so you really didn't miss it. And as you got older, it kind of disappeared. Because now you're in a new situation and you got new foods. So in the back of your head, yeah, you probably did miss it, but not as much as you would think.
Nice. Okay.
So what you were, so you got to DC when you were 14 and start high school. You're living. Did you have siblings?
Yes.
Okay.
But one of them returned to Halifax.
Okay.
I only had one here.
Okay.
And he returned to Halifax and he stayed down there until he passed.
Okay. And where did you go to high school?
Well, I went to two high schools.
Okay.
I went to Springarn
Okay.
and Blue.
Okay. And it's Springarn? Springarn?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that high school. I'm glad to know more about it. And they had a greenhouse. Was that something that a lot of students were either required to do or wanted to do, or how did that fit into the kind of the program there?
It only fitted in for the little nerdy kids. It didn't fit in for the popular kids. They didn't do that. More quiet kids. They wanted something to do after school, and it fit with their programs.
Okay. But were they, so the greenhouse, were they growing food in there?
Yes. They were herbs, some kind of herbs. I can't remember exactly what it is. It eludes me, but they were growing some kind of herbs and spices, or something similar to that. And of course, the old standby tomatoes. The tomato plants. So that's what I remember.
Yeah. What year about is this?
Now you really got me at the call. I'm actually thinking, and maybe I'm not correct, probably 70.
Okay.
Wow.
In the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember what kind of tomatoes you grew?
I want to say heirlooms, but I'm not actually sure. On one heirlooms, what does come to mind?
Yeah.
Yeah. So other than the heirlooms and the big boys, that's the only ones I remember. You know?
Do you remember where you got the seeds?
Probably out of a package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, heirlooms, they come from all kinds of weird places these days. I mean,
of course.
people have kind of made a little market, you know, figured out how to make money off of them. But at that time, I imagine it was just kind of who you knew. Or I'm curious.
The most popular place to get your seeds was Heckinger Mall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it was Heckinger's then.
Mm-hmm.
And and it was a big, Heckinger's was big everywhere, so that's where you mostly got your seeds.
Mm.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I know that.
It was the only you may have ordered them from. I was a subscriber to. I'm pretty sure that was Mother Earth magazine, and I think you could get seeds for 5 cents, 10 cents a package then.
Nice.
But you still didn't know where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't really know where they came from, other than they would say they were organic seeds, but they weren't saying they were certified organic seeds. So you just assume that these are the best seeds, and even with Heckinger's, when you go and they open up the big container of seeds and weigh them, you still didn't know where they came from or what, anything like that.
Wow. Okay, so now that you're in DC, do you do gardening now?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sure at least from the 70s up until now, you've seen a big change, or have you seen a big change in the way food is, like the food that you knew growing up, even from Halifax, Virginia, to now? What kind of changes have you seen?
I've seen a movement towards wanting to know exactly what seeds you are planting. You know, organic seeds. That movement has come about in I'd say the last 5 years, where people want to have certified organic. I mean, because when the genetic engineering came, and I found out, I can't speak for anybody but myself, but I found out that they were cross-breeding seeds with maybe not correctly in saying this, some animals, products and animal tissues or whatever they were doing. It set off in their lawn. This genetically engineered food was something that I didn't really want to deal with. So I sought out certified organic seeds, and I'm still doing that.
Okay.
I'm not growing a lot of food in my garden. What I'm growing is what they call bush gourds, because I use them in my crafts and in my hobbies. So I do grow the tomatoes. I think I'm stuck with that. I'm growing the green zucchini and the yellow squash. Of course, I'm reverting back to corn. I'm using corn, and cucumbers.
Is this a backyard garden or at the?
This is the community garden out at Fort Dupont.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one of the largest plots out there. I'm currently in conflict with the deer. So,
is there a fence?
Well, yes, there was. There is a fence. It just wasn't high enough.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So I'm kind of working that out. But I'm looking forward to my next year there, and a higher fence, so I can actually reap some of the benefits of my gardening. They may not all give it to the deer. But yeah,
too.
well, they may be hungry, but I put in the hours, but yeah.
Okay. So it is quite a bit of food, I think. Even though you may not think it's a lot, you are growing some food as well as some other things. Are there any particular practices that you brought from you in your early childhood or what you used to do when you were younger? Did you bring some of those agricultural practices and do you use some of those still today in what you grow?
Yes. I'm still tied to the horse manure and the cow manure. The straw for, that whole mixture. I'm staying away from the chemical fertilizers. And that was about it. And the composting.
Okay.
We used to have a big compost bin.
Oh, wow.
I mean, a huge one. So I'm still composting.
Wow, very nice. Any mom secrets, old aunt secrets, maybe with the tobacco that you guys used to use?
No, man, the biggest secret is make sure there's a lot of minerals in the ground. When you plant. That's the biggest secret. Just don't think that Mother Earth is gonna miraculously put all the minerals in the ground that you need to grow a particular crop. So again, composting, and composting. That's all I use mostly.
Nice.
So at Fort Dupont there's a communal compost
Yes.
pile or bin?
Well, I apologize. You can also do it within your space. And what they supply is a compost. Well, the Park Service, they have horses. So when they clean out their stables, they'll bring all of that and leave it at Fort Dupont. They will also, when they cut up trees, bring all of those wood chips and put them in a pile. They have huge piles of that. And you can use all that you want.
Nice.
For free?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, good deal.
Are people with the horse manure, city folk, generally speaking, are kind of afraid of manure, but gardeners are different. But how is it at Fort Dupont? Are people fine with it?
They're fine with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have some old timers out there advising you, well, it hasn't cooked properly yet, so I wouldn't use that pile. There's a pile back there from 1932 that you might want to use. But they seem to be okay with that. I mean, because they've already taken the first step. They're gardening. And that first step, then they want to know, well, when we first got the plots, the park ranger said, well, we have compost, manure and stuff all around that you can use. And we prefer not to use that you guys use the chemical fertilizer because of the runoff. So that was that.
Is it just preferred, or it's not a hard rule?
Well, see, no one's checking.
Okay.
So I'm not. It is a rule that they don't want you to use it. That's the only rule. They don't want you to use it. But no one's out there saying don't bring in Miracle Grow. So. And I'm thinking that most of the gardeners there adhere to that. A gardener is a special person. It really is. Or her. They really are. And they want to produce as much as they want to. But when you're fighting with deer and bugs and things that are eating up your crop, I don't know, you may want to spray. So the only thing I see there at Fort Dupont that there's not an ongoing education in terms how to fight the pest with non-lethal products. the mom and pops, like some people, some of the gardeners I've spoken to, they say that they take Zest soap and shave with the grater and shave it, so and that will keep a deer away.
Oh wow!
You know, because they don't like the smell.
So just sprinkle it around the garden?
Yeah, yeah. And they bring out their bars of soap and their cheese grater, and you can see them.
Oh wow!
You know, and then there are other people that will take and get Dixie cups and fill it with water and detergent, dishwashing detergent. So when the bugs fall in, they can't get out.
Wow. That's a nice good practices. Do you use any special practices other than the soap and the detergent and the water to kind of
I use a spray bottle of detergent,
okay.
you know, soapy water.
What did you use to try to keep the deer away?
Blood meal.
Okay.
Yeah, I use
And most
blood
people
meal.
use it.
They said they really disliked that, and I got some stockings, women's stockings, and I filled it up with blood meal and I put it around the fencing area. So when they came up to it, they could smell it, and that should have deterred them. But there were some determined deer.
The cucumber smell better.
Yeah, they were determined to eat my crop. So, but and again, I needed a higher fence, so I'm installing a very high fence.
Just around your plot, or?
Well, of course, I apologize. I can't do my neighbors because fencing is very expensive. Yeah. So, and they have a rule that there's a certain type of fencing that you can use. You can't use netting because they don't want to kill the black snakes and whatever little animal gets trapped up in it. So, the holes have to be at least 3 inches or 4 inches in diameter so that those animals can get through. Those small animals.
Nice. Okay. Sounds like it's going well.
Well, I think it will go even better this next season because I didn't know I was in the path of a herd of deer here. So I was kind of taking it for granted that, you know, I see all these other gardeners that don't really have fence. It's just they seem to migrate on the lower part of the property than they do up at the higher end. So when I got my plot, I was down there in the lower bottom, as they say, and I have a herd of deer that like to pass that way. But I think I can handle that, you know. But
How long have you been in this garden?
I've been in this garden probably about, let me think, 6 months. Yeah, 6 months. But I have 3.5 acres in Halifax that I'm putting up greenhouses. I have a pond that I'm raising crayfish in. And I'm going to actually think about going into commercial greenhousing.
Nice. Beautiful. Any particular things other than the things that you like to grow, anything you tend to specialize in and you kind of want to focus on?
2 things.
Yes.
Gourds and crayfish.
Okay, so other than what you just explained, nothing really that will be a specialty.
No.
Okay, nice. Very nice. Do you have any special recipes or special ways to grow things, or any kind of little niche piece of information that you would give?
I think I probably covered it all when I say that you really have to really think. I know you really want to go out and start planting, but if you don't build the foundation of the soil, you may be disappointed. I mean, yeah, you think that you can just go dig a hole and put a seed in and you're going to get this fabulous crop of stuff. But Mother Nature may need a little help when you go out and start gardening, you need to put those, you get you get out of the ground what you put into it. If you put good nutrients in the soil, you'll get excellent plants out of it.
Oh, wow, nice. Did you have any more questions?
Well, so Fort Dupont, you've only been there for 6 months?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you ever at any other community gardens?
I've been, well, I have a friend at Fort Dupont.
Okay.
And I've been working with him for a while, so I've only had this plot for 6 months. But Mr. Dixon had his, and that was 2 years ago that I'm the digger, the tiller, and help put up his stuff. So he's an older gentleman than I am, so that must make him really ancient. Ancient. So I was helping him out there. So, but to answer your question directly, no, this is the first year that I've had my own at Fort Dupont, other than what I'm doing on a bi-weekly basis in Halifax.
Okay. Yeah. And so the rest of that, prior to that, being at Fort Dupont, you kept stuff in your own yard? Where you live in? Or?
Well, yeah, I've grown stuff actually here on the roof.
Oh.
Yeah. I think rooftop growing is an urban phenomenon here.
Okay.
So I'm doing that also.
So talk about that a little bit. Rooftop growing, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, there are some, you actually don't really need anything but the good soil again. Excuse me. And a very large tote. You know, the ones, the plastic containers that you buy, you store clothes in and stuff. Or a rain barrel. And that turned out really good. I mean, I grew at least 25 gourds on top of this roof. The roof of this building, I should say.
Yeah.
And then there's the tomatoes I grew there. I can't bear those tomatoes again. Can't get rid of them. And some, again, I think I may have said also some bush gourds that I grew up there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So you don't have a problem, I'm sure you won't have a problem with the deer or the big animals, but the birds, they aren't a problem. They don't kind of peck at and take away, or...
I prefer birds over deer any day.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually do.
Okay, so it's not
a problem with my birds.
Wow.
I don't understand. They're mostly interested in the insects opposed to the products and the produce and stuff. They want them insects. And I guess that's one reason the Park Service frowns on using chemicals, you know, pesticides and things of that nature, because they don't target a pest, they target everything. So they prefer you not to use those chemical pesticides.
Nice. Wow. Very nice.
The only thing, what time are we at?
33 minutes.
Oh, great. I'm just curious if there's anything from your time living in DC or Baltimore, just relationships, people that stand out who taught you or would just have interesting stories, or people who you taught, who you shared knowledge with. Are there any memories of relationships that stand out for you?
Most of those come from my home. You know, my grandparents, my nieces, nephews, and uncles. They were, of course, they were rural farmers, and they didn't know much about city living. So they kind of told you that, you know, you get up early in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, to go pick the harvest, and you pick it from anywhere from 3 to around, I'm trying to say 8 o'clock. And it's sort of like it's inherited type of feeling. You actually know when to go and what to do. Other than that, it's just a gut feeling. And when I knew I was going to be a gardener, I knew that. You know, I knew when after I got out of the rigor and the chain, you know, all of the working, that I wanted to go back into gardening. So that's one of the reasons I purchased the 3 acres down in the south, and I'm turning it into huge gardening and greenhouses.
Do you think you'll move there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Well, of course. First of all, I'm not going to be able to retire here. I may have been able to work here, but with the new push, the property values and all of that, I'm not going to give it back. I'm not giving it all back. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to move back there. Okay. Well, you know, it's hard to get 3 acres to garden here.
Yeah.
You need, what, $33 million?
Yeah, 3 acres.
Yeah. A city? So, yeah, I'm going to be moving back there.
Are there, you talked earlier about moving to the city and that stigma that was attached to, you know, gardening or working the earth, but you've clearly hung on to that. I mean, it seems like you feel good about that. Was that?
Well, it came with maturity. Opposed to, you know, again, when bright lights are booming and music is afoot, you tend to get distracted from the good things of life. And you see things that you think are good, but are actually not good for you. If you look at the problems we are having with hypertension, obesity, and those things alike, they clearly would have not been as epidemic as they are now if more of us were eating our own products. You know, we're eating a lot of stuff that is camouflaged as good, but actually is not working for our benefits. So once you return to Mother Earth and the gardening aspect of it, you may tend to lose some of that high blood pressure. You definitely will lose weight when you start eating more leafy vegetables and greens. And you'll stay out of the hospital. So it just came with maturity. And once I found that they even taste better, food tastes better when you grow it. You know, I had some zucchini, some yellow squash, and some onions from this garden out in Fort Dupont. And I guarantee you, it tasted 1,000 times better than what I was buying from Giants, Safeways, and those people that were bringing in stuff that never ever goes bad. I've had an apple on top of my cabinet, my refrigerator, for at least, I'm serious, I wouldn't exaggerate this, 90 days. It is still shiny and bright. When I go down when I pick apples and pears and things from my farm down the country, I bring it back. If I'm not consuming that within a week or so, it starts to decay. How come an apple that's just as good from the farm and the apple I buy at the Safeway don't decay at the same rate? So I'm leery of buying apples from places that I don't know where they come from, because I'm an older guy now, and ain't nobody's gonna help me. Somebody's gonna help me. You know, they're gonna say go to the doctor, but when I can get fresh produce from that I knew I grew, and has not been tampered with, I think that's a no-brainer. But a lot of people in the cities, I mean, it's happening better now. It's getting much better now, because you see a lot of spaces that used to be just abandoned spaces now being turned into community gardens. And that's a great thing. But a lot of people can't, get the fresh produce. They have to go to the Giant, the Safeways, and every place else to get inferior fruit and produce but they paying top dollar. And they don't want to go out in their backyard to put in collard greens. That's weird. They have all this yard dedicated to green grass, but nothing there to eat. And I feel for them. I mean, I can't go around and save the world. I'm trying to save me. So, I don't understand why people just don't embrace gardening. I mean, with 2 feet. You need to. I mean, back in the day, there were the victory gardens, and people did very, very well in terms of their health. But we've moved away from that. Like we've moved away from a lot of things that can help us because of what we are now seeing on the TV and everything else, or being taught over the radios, or we go to schools and half of the teachers don't even know.
Very interesting.
It's sad when you think about, you ask some kids where do they get milk, the old adage, where do you get milk from? They say from a carton. That's sad. You know?
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions? Alrighty. Well, we're actually going to conclude the interview. Thank you so much for answering
Thank you
questions.
for having me.
Yeah.
And for, for shedding, your memories and telling your story from then to now. And we appreciate it.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.